anonymity and the permanence of the civil service, isn't it?
That's true. Now, CLOG had this view that there was this whole idea that politics was heavily now influencing decisions in the civil service. So the civil servant should not be that now barred from being active in politics because he is bad and somebody else is taking somebody is taking decisions that is influenced by politics. So why not allow that civil servant to join politics so that he can also influence decisions in his or her favor? So we tried to, our starting point was to say that in fact the Constitution did not bar the civil servant from engaging in active politics, because we felt that it only barred the civil servant from becoming a member of parliament. So we said that we will go to the Supreme Court to test the law so that will free the civil servant to also do politics, so that he or she can also influence his or her, career progression, rather than allow it, they are not into politics, and yet politics is determining their fate. So that was the motivation.
That's wonderful. Viewers, we have been joined by Dr. Daniel Appiah, who is a senior lecturer in public administration at the University of Ghana Business School. Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
It is good you join us at this prime moment, because from the perspective of academia, when we say neutrality and anonymity, permanence, what does it mean, basically?
Right. Thank you very much, and good morning to our listeners, and good morning to my co-panelists. When we say that a civil servant is supposed to be politically neutral, it means that the civil servant's loyalty must be first and foremost to the state, and then to the citizens who put the civil servants in office. A civil servant gets into office not through elections. You go through you get into office after passing competitive examinations and then through interviews, and then you are selected to serve the public. And you agree to be a servant of the citizens, a servant of the state, to the extent that whichever government comes into power, you have to serve that government objectively with all your heart, without wearing either Democrat, Republican, NPP, or NDC colors. And so that is what it means to say that a civil servant must be neutral, non-partisan. You have to serve whichever government comes into office neutrally, non-partisan, objectively, and then offer the best of your advice without any fear of being victimized for saying the right thing, which may not be in alignment even with the policy of the government of the day. But because you have trained yourself to analyze a policy and then offer the best of advice objectively, you're not afraid, because you have been put in office to offer the best of advice in an objective, neutral manner.
Doc, I seem to be confused here. But before then, viewers, you can join us live on our social media handles, CLOG TV, Facebook, YouTube, and the rest.
Right.
You know, when the politician is coming to seek power from the citizenry, what they say is that we want your endorsement to come and serve you, to come and serve Mother Ghana. So how different is that political service from the civil service? Because at the end of the day, we are all serving the citizenry and serving the nation by extension.
Right. So to understand this, we have to put it in the context of the entire state. You are building a state, a system of public administration to serve the citizens. And within that system, there are different categories of public servants. Some are politically elected through the ballot box. to occupy the executive position. Others have also been appointed to work in the judiciary, now to exercise judicial interpretation of laws in an independent manner. Others have also been appointed to work in parliament, also to formulate laws. And then others have been appointed as the civil servants, the neutral person who should be there to serve all manner of government. And so it is not all public servants who are appointed through the ballot box. There are different categories of public servants within the state. And it is very, very important that we understand the jurisdictions and then the mode of appointment of the different categories of public servants. Otherwise, a time may come that we are going to say that, well, a politician or a political party has gone for an election, has won the elections, and have the right to appoint all members of the judiciary. And then by so doing, undermine the principle of the independence of the judiciary, or they've got the right to appoint all members of the neutral civil servant. And then by so doing, then they undermine the principle of the civil service. Because for over 100 years, there has been that kind of consensus among development practitioners and scholars that in a democratic country, for a country to be able to move forward, you need a group of who will wear a neutral and partisan hat and should offer the best of advice to the elected government in power. And so, for instance, you look at the case of the United States. After they won their independence from Britain, and then they were building their civil service, one of the things that they had to do was to now distance the process of multi-party politics or electoral politics from the civil service. And even precedent servant to create or to try and maintain that kind of jurisdiction, that for the political office holder, your job and then your mode of appointment is different. Once you have gone there, you've made the policies, you've been advised and you've made the policies and you've finished. Give it to the technical civil servant now to implement the policies. You are making your policies, you can rely on the advice of the technical civil servant to make the best of policies. But once you finish, it is the job of the civil servant now to implement it. If you lose the election, the next election, whichever government comes into power, the civil servant must still continue to implement that policy, regardless of the fact that there is a new government in power. And so we need to understand that within the state, there are different categories of public servants, and then under it, we have the civil service. And so we are confused about the fact that a party has won office, you come in there, and you've got to respect the fact that to organize the state and then to move forward for us to develop, you have to get a neutral civil service to support you.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. My lawyer, I still would want us to bring clarity to this issue of the neutrality and continuity, permanence of the civil service, because if you look at the primary documents that guide governance, from where other laws derive the authority, is the Constitution. The Constitution also confers rights on all citizens of Ghana, including civil servants, to join any party or association of their choice. But it said that, however, by virtue of the traditional role of the civil service, the government, to serve the government of the day and to maintain confidence in any future administration, a civil servant may, he said, may not accept any office, paid or unpaid, permanent or temporary, in any political party or organization. My confusion here is the fact that ab initio, the Constitution accept the fact that as a citizen of Ghana, what do you call it, a membership or joining of association is a right. So why is it that civil service of all government institutions is barred from engaging in party politics? I mean, I want us to decipher the fear in there, then we can progress from there.
Thank you. So that was precisely the point of CLOG. CLOG felt that because of the constitutional provision that says that every citizen of Ghana has the right to join an association, freedom of expression, freedom of choice, association, and all those constitutional rights that are provided in the Constitution. CLOG felt that those rights were also near to the civil servant. So therefore, they will go to the Supreme Court to test whether or not, in relation to those rights and the express provisions in the Civil Service Act, Civil Service Code of Conduct, that said that the civil servant could not take part in active politics. So that motivated the case of the CLOG. So CLOG went to the Supreme Court to test whether or not the provision in the Civil Service Act, provision in the Civil Service Code of Conduct, provisions in the local. So the starting point was to say that allow the civil servant to also do politics. Once you are allowing politics to determine everything now, and the Supreme Court did not agree and felt that the civil service was such an important institution that the constitutional rights that were provided in the constitutions were not absolute, were subject to the public interest, so they said that, look, we are not yet ready for the civil servant to be in active politics. Otherwise, the progress and development of this country, our dear country, Ghana, will be in jeopardy. So, and felt that the traditional notions of the civil service, neutrality, anonymity, and permanency should still be upheld.
Lawyer, I'm just referring to the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Where the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, that is CLOG, as the plaintiff.
Yes.
Versus the Attorney General in one part.
Yes.
The office of the other head of the civil service.
Yes.
The office of the local government head of the local government service.
Yes.
As defendants.
Yes.
And you sought about 15 reliefs.
Yes.
And really going through all the reliefs, I realized that you wanted the Supreme Court to declare basically the right of the civil servant.
Yes.
To join a political party or, yes, let me say in quotes, wear political colors.
Sure.
And you were denied all these reliefs.
Well, we were not denied all the reliefs. We were denied most of the reliefs, but some of the reliefs were also granted. Now, if you look at some of the reliefs included whether or not the civil servant could take part in local government elections, i.e. assembly elections. Now, because if you look at the Code of Conduct of the Local Government Services Act, they also barred local government servants from taking part in district assembly elections. So, one of the reliefs we went to court to get was to say that the civil servant, local government servant was allowed by law to be a member of the district assembly. So if you look at the conclusion of the judgment, it granted in part to the relief we saw that the district, the constitution did not bar members of both the local government and the civil servants from taking part in district assembly elections. But the Constitution, the Supreme Court said that yes, you are not barred, but once you are elected as an assembly member, you cannot continue to be in the service. You must leave. Now, this was very different from when it came to other political activities, i.e., member of parliament joining, applying, seeking to be an executive for a political party. That one, the Supreme Court said, you can't even dare do it before you even consider doing it. Then you must resign as a civil servant before you can do that. In terms of the district level elections, you can still be a civil servant and stand for elections. When you win and you have to be sworn in as a member of the assembly, then you must leave either the civil service or the local government service. You see the difference. In the first one, you cannot even do it. You must resign before you attempt to do it. But the second one, that's the local government services, you can still be a civil servant, a local government servant, and contest elections for the district assemblies. When you succeed, but before you are sworn in, then you must resign. This was the clarity the Supreme Court brought to.
We are researching the civil service, and we are walking through the judgment of the Supreme Court vis-a-vis the current status quo. If you look at the defendant's case, the defendant urged that the combined effect of Articles 21.3, 94.3, and 284 of the 1992 Constitution is to oust the members of the civil service and local government service from participating in political activities. This is because the nature of civil servant's role is such that he or she must at all times maintain neutrality in political matters in order to ensure political impartiality and gain public confidence in their service. So if the defendant, which is the Attorney General himself, has put forward such a defense, why are we having this kind of misinterpretation of their own case, and by extension the decision of the Supreme Court, where a politically exposed person is being asked or appointed to serve in a civil service office?
Yes, that's one of the flaws in our governing system. Now, you see that the Attorney General is a political appointee, but those who work in the Attorney General's department, until recently, were also civil servants. Until the local government services was passed, the Legal Services Act was passed in 1993. They were also civil servants. But the features of civil service apply to them. So they are also permanent, anonymous,
and neutral.
So whereas they do their work in this neutral, permanent, anonymous manner, the political heads who appear at the Attorney General would not normally be very, very abreast with decision like this. The political people normally don't go about, looking at some of these things. But the Attorney General lawyers who are there, they know the nature of the case, the implication of the case. But the political heads, most of them do not know. So it's our duty as the association, CLOG, to make sure that we drum it until everybody in Ghana gets to know about these decisions, and not just to leave it to be on paper for lawyers and judges and academicians like Dr. Ye to be interested in. Let everybody in Ghana know about that decision, Let everybody in Ghana know about the implication of that decision. Let every political party, let every political actor know about it. So that, and I'm sure that's why we are here discussing, so that people get to know that this is such a decision exists, and these are the implications.
Thank you, lawyer. We'll go on a short break, but viewers, you can send in your questions and your enquiries or comments by joining us on our social media handles, and we'll be willing to divulge them. When we come back, we'll go deeper into the Supreme Court decision or ruling itself, then juxtapose that on the NAP, the neutrality, the anonymity, and permanence. Stay tuned. I'm your host, Cephas Dusu. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome back to RCS, Researching the Civil Service. I'm your host, Cephas Dosu. With me is lawyer Gomda and Dr. Apia to divulge the issue of strengthening or enforcing the civil service structures. Lawyer, can you walk us through the Supreme Court on this, what do you call it, case, the civil service and the rest of the defendants?
Yes, so as I said earlier, the association set out with the objective that, look, the name of the game, the progress, the continuity, the development of any public servant was not tied to the politician. Now, if that was so, then there was the need for the association to go to court to say that the code of conduct, the laws that bar the civil servant from taking part in active politics should be declared unconstitutional, so that the civil servant will also now be free to also join the active partisan politics, not as to leave the service, but also in a way to allow him or her to also develop herself or himself in the service, because everything was now tied to politics. Your progression, your continuous stay in the service, your development was tied to a politician. So the association went to court to seek a number of reliefs, to say that under the chapter of the Constitution that has the fundamental human rights, under those chapters, the civil servants were allowed, just like any other person, to join any political party of his or her choice. So if that was so, then the laws, the Civil Service Act, the Code of Conduct, the Local Government Services Act is Code of Conduct that barred the civil servant or the servant from the local government servant from doing that, was therefore unconstitutional. So we went to the Supreme Court to seek a number of reliefs to say that the Supreme Court should declare that unconstitutional, just to pave way for the civil servant to also be in active politics and still be a member of the service.
So thank you very much. So Doc, in your opinion, do you think this landmark ruling has set a precedent or a new precedent for the way the civil service should be governed, or it has enforced existing structures, or what is the new norm that is brought to bear that must be a guiding principle?
Right, so first, for me, it has reinforced the idea that within a multi-party democracy, it is important to create a neutral and non-partisan civil service. Because if you go back to our history in the development of Ghana's, of this particular state, when the Convention People's Party and then the United Gold Coast Convention were created, immediately the governor and that assembly recognized that there was a need to preserve the integrity of the civil service. And so one of the first laws or rules that were made following the creation of these two political parties was that if you are a member of the civil service, you don't have the right to join any political parties. That is, if you look at the civil service, I think order 50A or so that was issued, and it is stated that from 1st October 1949, no member of the civil service has the right to join any political party. If you want to join any of these two political parties, then you have to resign. or you have to leave. And so the ruling of the Supreme Court is affirming this particular kind of historical trajectory that we have walked. And if you look at also when the country was creating the Independence Constitution, that's the 1957 Constitution, all manner of associations in this country, traditional authorities, and even the political parties themselves, the submissions that they made was to the effects that the integrity and neutrality of the civil service should be maintained. So these are all living documents that are there guiding the Supreme Court, that are there guiding whoever is interested in building on the civil service. So it is not a new kind of precedent that has been set, but it is just affirming the fact that within a multi-party democracy, the way to really preserve the civil service is to emphasize that the civil service is supposed to be unpartisan, non-partisan, neutral, and therefore if you are a member of that service and you want to play party politics, then that is not the place for you. I'm even happy with the first line. That is, if you look at the conclusion of the judgment, the first item was that upon a true and proper interpretation of the Constitution, a member of the civil service or local government service has a right to join any political party of his or her choice. If you go back and look at the Civil Service Orders 50A that was issued, that said that from 1st October 1949, you see the same kind of sentence in there. You also see the same thing the Supreme Court said here, that however, such a person does not have the right to participate overtly in political party activities. So it is not saying that you cannot, at the end of the day, be a member of any political party, but you don't have the right to overtly come out publicly, because we want to preserve the principle of neutrality at the end of the day, so that we can have civil servants who can offer the best of their advice. So this is the of the Supreme Court, that if you're a member of the civil service, yes, you can join a political party, but you don't have the right to come out in public to show your party colors. And second, it states that if you are nominated for any party position, whether it is a constituency chairman, whether it is organizing secretary at the constituency level, regional level, national level, it says that you have to resign. So, by a matter of principle, in building a civil service, the Supreme Court's ruling has affirmed the decisions that were taken before independence, that were taken also by the founding political parties, that were taken by the founding fathers of this country, that were taken by all the citizens, all manner of associations, to say that this is the Ghana that we want. And therefore, I am happy that the 2017 ruling came to try to, put some sanity and then to emphasize and to educate everyone that this is the path that this country has been taken.
To this end, Supreme Court or judgments from the courts are not just mere pronouncements. They are supposed to cure an ill. So how do you expect oversight bodies like political authorities, like the Public Services Commission, like the Office of the Head of the Civil Service, like the Office of the Head of the Local Government Service, to ensure compliance and adherence to this judgment, so that this kind of banter that has existed over the past few weeks will be a thing of the past? We don't revisit it anymore.
Right, so that's a very good question. And happily, after the Supreme Court's ruling, if you remember, somewhere in 2019, the Public Service Commission wrote letters to some public servants who had been nominated on political party platforms to contest for positions of member of parliament. And the Public Service Commission wrote to them that you have to resign. And so it is not the first time that we've had civil servants coming out in protest against someone who has been nominated, a politically exposed person who has been nominated. So it is up to bodies, the Public Service Commission, the Office of the Head of Civil Service, and then including all of us, to make sure that we protect and then defend the integrity of the civil service at the end of the day. So if you look at the current case where civil servants are up to say that the president should not, for instance, nominate that person for the office of the births and deaths registry, the predecessor who occupied that office, that's Madame Henrietta, when she was appointed, the CLOG came out again to say no. The person who has been appointed is also a politically exposed person. So this is not the first time that you find CLOG. Unless someone says that, oh, maybe CLOG is anti-ND, because when the predecessor was appointed by Nana Akufo-Addo, CLOG came out to say, no, we don't want this particular person because this particular person is politically exposed. So it is incumbent on the leadership of CLOG, the leadership of the Office of the Head of Civil Service, the leadership of the Public Service Commission, all to keep guard and make sure that politically exposed persons do not actually enter the civil service, or persons who overtly, as the Supreme Court says, overtly show their political powers. The Public Service Commission, the Office of the Head of Civil Service, CLOG, will have to come out and then protest against it and say that no, this is what the Supreme Court has said. This is the Ghana that we are, the Ghana where we can have that civil service that is competent, that is fair, that is objective, that is impartial. If that is not done at the end of the day, then the civil service is going to continue to lose its integrity. It will lose its relevance. And there will come a time where we will begin to see what happened in the United States some time ago, the spoil system, whereby every new political party that wins office now comes and then kick out everyone and then now appoints their own people into the administrative system. That is not something that we want to see. So we should be guided by history and how developed countries have been able to make that progress. And if as a developing country, we also want to make that progress and then be able to develop. Let us be minded by history that once you accept multi-party democracy, you have a responsibility to create insulation mechanisms to protect the civil service. Otherwise, things will not go on well for you.
Thank you very much. Lagumda, so I wanted to find the same issue from the legal perspective, that how can these two offices, that is the Office of the Head of Civil Service, in fact there are three, Local Government Service, Public Service Commission, be empowered to clone the civil service from this kind of political interference, and by extension ensuring adherence to this ruling. And also by extension, do you perceive that academia, civil society, and relevant stakeholders in the nation of Ghana also have a role to play?
Certainly. That's why I said that, I mean, it's incumbent on CLOG especially to drum this decision into the ears and every person in Ghana that this type of decision exists, this is the implication of this decision, and make sure that they are very, very, very alert to any infringement on the decision or anything that goes against the decision. They are led to protest. As Doctor said, when the previous regime appointed somebody, CLOG protested. Actually, we went to court. I initiated a case on behalf of the CLOG against that appointment. I mean, to say that that appointment was in violation of this decision. So that decision was never made, and there's a change of government, and then change of government, the new government also comes and also just starts to do the same thing. And the thinking is that, oh, the president has been empowered by the act to appoint the registrar of the births and deaths. But the president is empowered to appoint every member of the public service. The chief director is appointed by the president, but does the president take somebody outside the civil service to be the chief director? No. The chief directors always rise through the ranks to become chief directors, and the president appoints them as chief directors. So this notion that the president appoints, then the president has the power to appoint anybody. Because the civil service rules, this decision should guide the president in the appointment. So that, as Doc was saying, if you are a civil servant and you work in the births and deaths registry, your target is to grow and become the head. Is that not so? Now you grow, to become deputy registrar of the births and deaths registry, and from nowhere somebody is picked outside to come and be your head. I mean, would any civil servant be motivated to work? No, because the person, yes, because the apex will be taken over by a politician. So what is the motivation to continue to be there when you can rise to the apex? So, and these institutions, they are there to protect all of us, and that's why they remain in the civil service, so that they remain neutral. So the present appointment can still be guided to appoint neutral persons to those positions, persons who have risen through the ranks to become deputy directors, deputy registrars who are in these births and deaths. What is their career objectives? What is their career progression? It's going to be truncated. In other words, the civil servant will only rise to become deputy. Well, in no time, the politician will even take over the deputy position and start appointing deputies registrars. And in no time, they will take over the regional registrars. And in no time, they will take over the appointment of district registrars. And in no time, they will take over the appointment of every person in the public civil service. And that's going to be detrimental to the state. That's why we are protesting.
You see, I was just going to ask Doc to advance some arguments in this tangent when he shared his experience of the traffic he had to go through this morning, and aligned it to what most civil servants go through every morning. Wake up in the morning, some are coming all the way from Kaswa. They have to go off the journey to go and drop their kids in school, come to the office, go and perform their tasks in the day, close, go through the traffic. I mean, it's a cycle. Then at the end of the day, after all this cycle, there's no motivation to progress into the next level. How do you perceive non-adherence to the Supreme Court's ruling? To what extent do you think such non-adherence and such infiltrations can undermine productivity, especially as far as the civil service is concerned?
Right, Seva, so this is a very important kind of ruling. I think that should be respected by any party that is committed to advancing democracy. Because if a key pillar of the institutions or the organizational system of democracy has made this pronouncement, and by no means an institution than the Supreme Court, then it is very, very important all parties must adhere to it. As you rightly noted, this morning I woke up early and still couldn't be here at the time that I actually wanted to be here. At some point, I had to park my car and then take Okada. And you find civil servants going through all this, rising up early in the morning, taking care of families and all that. And all this in the hope of being committed to a civil service and rising through the ranks, also to reach that level where you now have the status now to offer advice to political elites out there. And so if that particular hope or inspiration is cut short, and you now have governments that come to appoint the senior bureaucratic heads, it demotivates people. And there are many research works that have been done that shows that people who are close to the top, when they see these things, they leave the service. After we've invested so much money and many years of training in them, they leave, they join international development agencies and all that, because they become very, very frustrated. Once they leave, that means you are losing your best now to other sectors, and you have to go out there and now retrain new persons. And so it is something that we really have to check, because it leads to a brain drain from the civil service at the end of the day. And so if we don't check that, not only is it going to demotivate people not to give their best, not only is it now going to make people to feel that, oh, now at the end of the day, the best people at the top are partisan guys. And so let us also do our things in political party colors, because my head at the top there is a political party guy. who was seen campaigning on political party platforms, when the Supreme Court has clearly stated that if you overtly declare your political party colors, you should not be put there, and then now you are put there. How do you expect this person to have the moral courage now to tell those below him or her that you don't have to come and then play party politics here? So it's undermining the courage, the moral courage, for the top there to actually instill discipline even in the service, apart from the fact that it's lead to brain drain from the service to other sectors of the society. And so it's got a lot of many negative ramifications that I think that as a developing country we don't have to condone and tolerate. And I think, let me link this to also a practice that has been developing over some time, where now when a new government comes in, even you find chief directors. Now some chief directors who are now no longer appointed from the service, but they are appointed from outside the service. And I'm not saying that if someone is out there in academia and has got knowledge like myself, maybe the person cannot be appointed as a chief director, but the principle is, what does it do to those who have committed decades of their lives learning about what happens in the civil service and hoping that one day they will also become chief directors at the end of the day? It demotivates them. So if you are really resetting Ghana and resetting the rules of the game to build a civil service, we need to put a stop to that. Let academia remain in academia. If we really want to be in academia, that is what we have chosen. Let the civil service who have chosen to be in the civil service to develop their careers, let them also be there and then rise to the very, very top. Let those who have joined other sectors of the public service, let them be there. Let those who want to dedicate their lives to politics.
As the extent of how influential and to some extent intimidating power be. Do you, I think maybe lawyer can take this up, do you propose, or what reforms do you propose that we must have within these civil service institutions that would absorb it from the political influence or interference, or that would create some kind of a barrier to the extent to which political interference is growing and is permeating through the rank and file of the civil service?
Thank you. I think we should clearly come out as a state or a nation to define the civil servant institutions. I mean, from the experience, when the previous government appointed somebody outside the civil service to be the registrar of births and deaths, I was part of the association that wrote letters to government to complain. Now, the presidency then wrote back to say that the power to appoint the registrar was vested in the president, and therefore the president could appoint anybody that the president wanted. Now, this clearly showed to me that the executive secretary or whoever who signed the letter on behalf of the president didn't understand the civil servant institutions. He thought that the power of the president to appoint any person, i.e. a minister, a chief executive for a district assembly, or apply to all manner of institutions. So it was clear that he didn't understand civil servant institutions and didn't know what it takes, and clearly he also didn't know about this judgment of the Supreme Court. So we need to come out clearly, maybe as an association, head of civil service, to clearly specify in the public space that these are civil servant institutions. Births and deaths is one such institution. Controller Accountant General is one such institution. The ministries, department, agencies, we list them, and so that the politicians know them. But because they don't know, that's my understanding, they don't know. I mean, I was listening to recently somebody speaking and also made similar point that the previous politician made. Oh, is the power to appoint is in the president. The president can do whatever, can appoint anybody. Clearly, that person does not understand civil servant institutions. Yeah. But if we take our time, the head of civil service, the council of civil service, closer supporting, we list all civil servant institutions and to tell them that these are all civil servant institutions. Their members are civil servants. They are supposed to be neutral. The registrar of the births and deaths is supposed to be a civil servant. Is supposed to be neutral. So if you appoint somebody from the political class to it, does that person become a civil servant? No. Does that appointment not violate the Supreme Court decision? It clearly violates it. So, and I see that it's not that they want to violate that decision. It appears to me that they don't know. So it's our duty as an association, it's our duty to liaise with head of civil service to properly come out with the civil servant institutions and let the politicians and let political class know about those institutions so that when they are doing appointments, they will not stray into those areas.
You said that in the response to the concerns raised about the appointments of the registrar.
Yes.
Whoever signed the letter referenced 1 and 5 of the Constitution.
Yes.
And it's obvious that he did not go further to look at the spirit and the letter of that article. And also, by extension, there were a caveat that were expressed there. Again, also in the fundamental principles of change management, stakeholder engagement is very key.
Yeah. So,
Doc, you see, currently, I think we should not just assume that because the person is in a political office, he knows everything.
Yeah.
How do you see, or what strategies do you think we can employ to effect some effective change management that would create some kind of understanding and adherence to the Supreme Court judgments?
Right. Sebas, thank you. First, I am very happy that CLOG has got a television station that has been used to educate both the political class and then the civil servants and then all categories of public sector workers and then the citizens. And that is very, very good. Because there are many people out there, even within the civil service, who do not know their positions and then status as civil servants because of the fact that at independence, all the various categories of organizations within the country, with the exception of the military and then even the police, were part of the civil service. But with time, as they took out many organizations, people have become confused. And so CLOG TV should continue to educate the public and then also hold stakeholder education for the members within the service themselves so that they will be alert in guarding against partisan infiltrations. The second thing that can be done, which I support lawyers' view, is that we need a schedule now in a revised or the amended Civil Service Act that states all the civil service agencies and then say that these categories of civil service organizations. These are the types of civil service organizations because the country's judicial and then legal system is developing. Many people are becoming very legalistic. And so if the schedule clearly lists them, as we used to have during the colonial times and after independence, I think that it will go a long way to help. And we should also note that before the NPP government left office, already there was a civil service amendment bill that was in the process of being taken to parliament or being discussed among stakeholders now to replace the existing Civil Service Act. And therefore, this is the time that a new government has come and want to reset Ghana, want to reset a good civil service. This is the time for CLOG. This is the time for the members now to participate actively in discussions and deliberations about the various provisions of this new Civil Service Act to be made. Because if you look at the existing one, you have rules, for instance, that say that to be appointed as a director, even that one requires presidential approval. It requires presidential kind of consent. And if you are building a true and proper civil service, level of even director, that rule should not be there at all. And so this is the time for us to remove such kind of rules where appointment of directors will have to be done solely by a civil service commission within the civil service, and the president and party should have no role, no hand to play at all. Of course, we've come a long way in our democratic dispensation. We've now seen how partisan politics, if we don't take care, can erode confidence in the system. And we've now seen how if political parties erode confidence in the system, how it can affect them severely in a negative way. So the current government should learn lessons from what's happened of authority and then support with more than 2/3 majority in parliament, for instance, to support the amendment of this new civil, for instance, to support the amendment of this new civil service as for us to have a true and independent, neutral, non-partisan civil service. And I think it will go a long way, really, to benefit them. Of course, for those of us in academia, I handle more than 1,000 students. I will be very happy educating my students like, look, this is a government that came to power and then has really protected the civil service, has built a better civil service, and so you need to appreciate it at the end of the day. If that is not done, and the same way I will go to class and say, look, the civil service that we are all learning here and we are all saying we need to build, there's a government that is destroying it. So they need to recognize the political power and rather tap into it.
Thank you very much. It's getting interesting. This morning we are on the legal foundations of the civil service governance in terms of the neutrality and accountability of the civil service. We will go for a brief commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to CLOG TV, where we are delving into the general topic of resetting the civil service. With me, I have Lawyer Gumda and Dr. here. This morning, we are delving into civil service governance, like I already said. But then I wanted to find out the Supreme Court judgment. How does it impact on public administration in general? If Doc can take this up for me.
Right. So the Supreme Court's judgment, in terms of its impact on public administration, is one that I foresee that it is going to help the country to build a better public administration. Because I think since independence, we've come a long way, and it seems that the current generation have forgotten or have no knowledge, no idea of the kind of civil service that Ghana used to have. That's made Ghana the country that inspired many African countries. When you travel to other countries, people are asking you, what's happened to Ghana? What's happened to your country? And why is our public administration system appears to be better, or is rated better than you? Last month I went to Tanzania, and it's a smaller country, and Ghana is richer than Tanzania, but international ratings of civil service effectiveness rates Tanzania's public administration system better than Ghana. But this is a country that was way far behind Ghana. And so this is the time that such a ruling has come now to reinforce the fact that if we have forgotten about an institution or a system called civil service, that must be neutral, that must be non-partisan, that must offer the best of policy direction to this country, this is the time that we are reminding you to do it. And so I think that is going to inspire confidence in the system among various categories of public administrators across the various ministries, departments, and agencies. That's, look, you have the Constitution now supporting you, because the ruling of the Supreme Court is a law at the end of the day, that if someone undertakes overt political or partisan political activities, you have every right to tell the person that this is not the way to go. You have every right now to draw the person's attention to the fact that the Supreme Court has made a ruling to re-emphasize and reinforce the position that Ghanaians took some 60 years ago, that we need a public administration system with a path that is neutral, that is non-partisan, that is competent. And so I think that for those who also want to join now the civil service, and then but they were disappointed maybe with recent events of politicization of the system, the Supreme Court's ruling at the should hope that, look, all hope is not lost at the end of the day, and going forward we can build a better public administration system. So I think that it will inspire confidence, and then to strengthen the checks and balances that have been put in the system to make sure that politicization of the civil service along partisanship, this is the time for it now to come to a halt. And I think that for the new government that has come to, because this ruling was made when it was not in government, now it has given them the platform now to win political capital by saying that we are here to reset the civil service that we all needed, and then build a better public administration system. 4 years to come, I want to see that the government has been able to build a better, more competent civil service, and I want to see the international ratings of Ghana in terms of our impartiality of the public administration system going up. Otherwise, the government has no excuse at all, actually, to point to and say that this is why we couldn't build a better public administration system. You've come, and luckily you have the Supreme Court behind you. So it's going to inspire confidence both for the public administrators and also for the political class to do the right thing.
Thank you. Lawyer, this morning, we are operating under the broad umbrella of resetting the civil service. Do you think that the existing laws are adequate in achieving the agenda of resetting the civil service, or would need some additional laws?
I think we have enough laws already that we can properly use to make the system work better. It is just our understanding of those laws, sometimes our deliberate misunderstanding of those laws that is causing these problems. Now, like Doc said, if you are a government and you want to be properly advised in terms of appointment when it involves the public service institutions generally, you can get the best advices from people to advise. But the politicians don't want to, because like I said, the power to appoint is provided in the Constitution. All public servants, the power to appoint is given to the president. But the president is not to just make the appointment. He must do so in accordance
with the council.
The advice of the council, and the advice must be made in consultation with the Public Services Commission. Now, if we have this, and the Article 195 says that the president appoints public servants, it means that the president cannot just appoint anybody. The Public Services Commission, the head of civil service, council of the civil service, must be the ones advising the president that appoint Mr. Dosu as the registrar of the births and deaths, and the president merely is to formally do that. So the role of the president becomes a formality. So, but now we are seeing that the presidency now decides, and then the council and the Public Service Commission now reacts to it. So that's a reversal of what the Constitution has provided for, and so it's incumbent on all of us to be abreast with the laws, because we have adequate laws already. We should be abreast with it and try to be vigilant when the presidency or any political person tries to do something contrary to the law. So the call by CLOG for people to go on strike and other thing is on the right direction, because I mean, these are the ways that you can get the politician to sit up and say that, am I doing the right thing? My understanding that there was a meeting with the Minister of Labour yesterday, and the minister expressed, some views, and said that when he heard from the CLOG, he understood what the CLOG was coming from. So if CLOG should write formally to the minister, so that the minister will pass it to the president. So we must be active so that to protect the civil service. Otherwise, we'll wake up, the next government will appoint everybody in the civil service, because the demand for position from the politicians, I mean, have become too many. So the president, it is said that the president has over 6,000 offices to fill. But these 6,000 will soon become too small for the president, so they'll have to expand it, and by extension, they'll take over all civil service jobs.
Okay, so I wanted to quickly refer you to the Constitution, Article 195.
Yes.
Then I would ask Dr. Pierre to come in. It says that subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the power to appoint persons to hold or to act in an office in the public services shall vest in the President, 1, acting in accordance with the advice of the governing council of the service concerned.
Yes.
And 2, given in consultation with the Public Services Commission. In our culture, we are trained not to say no when elderly persons or people of authority speak to us. We may not be in agreement, but once it's coming from them, you have to say yes, and sometimes do it even unwillingly. That overbearing authority, vested in appointing authorities, do you perceive that as the reason why the councils, the Public Service Commission, are not advising the possibly asking the president against some of this in quote illegality, for instance, appointing politically overt or exposed persons into civil service positions.
Yes, Sivas, it is part of the problem. A politically constituted council, and we don't have to pretend as human beings. If someone does something very good for you, as a human being, you want to also do something positive in return. You want to return the favor. And so long as we are not angels and we are human beings, we need to be mindful of the fact that it is human beings who are being appointed there. And you've talked about our culture at the end of the day, where it is very, very difficult, when an elderly person approaches you and then asks for a favor, for you to look into the eye of the elderly person and say, I won't do it. And so that is one of the problems, the problem of the president appointing members of councils, or like even the Civil Service Council. But what we need to really recognize is the fact that when we talk about the creation of a civil service, the civil service did not emerge in a multi-party democratic system. Multi-party democracy came to meet the civil service, and multi-party democracy is now creating a problem for the civil service. And this is what has led to now this banter and then friction and then struggle between civil service and multi-party democracy at the end of the day. And so it is now incumbent on multi-party democracy to find insulation mechanism, to find protectionist mechanism now to protect a civil service that will help that democracy to thrive and then to prosper. And so if we don't look at it from that perspective, and then we say that, look, we have now built a multi-party democracy, and then in the course of that, we have now made some kind of legal rules that says that the president is the one who has got the power to appoint members of the council and has got the power to appoint chief director, and go to section 22 of the civil service law. It says the power to appoint even directors, and so let us give the president that kind of dignity or that kind of respect. Then we are forgetting about the origins of the civil service and why a civil service must even exist within a state at the end of the day. Once again, all developed countries that develop today, from England to Japan to Germany, they all built their competent, effective, efficient civil service before they adopted multi-party democracy. So as a developing country, if we really want to develop, then we have to certainly look at this historical trajectory and then see that the power of the president to even appoint members of a council of a civil service is wrong in the first place. It is wrong. It is inconsistent with the spirit and purpose of a civil service, and therefore we have to correct it. If we don't correct it and we put that in our legal kind of statute and the president stands on it, of course the Supreme Court will also go and rule and say that that is what the law says. And so this is the time, if we are now going to review the Constitution, to review rules like that, that means that allows the president to even appoint members of the council. That particular kind of rule should be deleted. It should not be in the Constitution, so that we can create a civil service council that is in line with the true spirit and purpose of a civil service at the end of the day. So yes, we are going forward, and I am very happy that the new government is out there for a comprehensive constitutional review, and at the same time want to reset Ghana on a better path. To reset it on a better path, let us really take a look at some of these kind of rules in the Constitution that gives power to the president.
Has put section 196 of the Constitution into question. It is titled Other Functions of the Public Services Commission. Without permission, let me read. It says that the Public Services Commission shall have such powers and exercise such supervisory, regulatory, and consultative functions as both with the power to regulate entrance is possibly silent on this matter. I mean, what can you say to this?
Exactly what I was saying, that if you look at 195 is anticipating that some of the appointment into the public service has to come through the governing council, which is made in consultation with the Public Service Commission. They will now then advise the president, like I said, appoint Mr. Dosu as the registrar of the births and deaths. And the president has no choice but to appoint Mr. Dosu as the registrar of births and deaths. But now we have reversed it. And you put it that way that if an elder asks you to do something, you have no way that our culture, you will not refuse it, you will do it. So we have reversed it. Now the president appoints somebody as the acting registrar of the births and deaths and says,
your thoughts on building a professional, accountable, and a politically neutral public administration?
Right. My thought on this is to be very clear in creating or recreating the Civil Service Commission that we lost. Because Ghana used to have a Civil Service Commission.
Yes.
With specified number of agencies underneath. And the rules were very clear. Even to be promoted to the rank of a director or that secretary at that time, you had to write competitive examinations, and then the best candidate was selected. And so we don't have to reinvent this is the path that Ghana followed to become the Ghana. But if we have lost all that history because of the histories of military coups and then changes in government and all that, now we have practiced the current Fourth Republic democracy for more than 30 years. It is time now to clearly define the civil service in terms of its structure, in terms of its governance, and then take it from partisan appointment and then partisan manipulations at the end of the day. Because no country has ever been able to build an efficient civil service, an effective civil service in the context where partisan kind of elements are appointing the top bureaucratic elite. It has never happened anywhere before. And all leading practitioners and scholars in this particular domain of public administration affirm that if you are building a multi-party democracy, one of the biggest challenges that you are going to face is how to create an effective public administration system, particularly the civil service, that is devoid and insulated from partisan politics. And you have to find a way of doing that. And unless we are able to find a way of doing that, we will not be able to succeed. And to do that, once again, I will call attention to the fact that there is currently a civil service amendment bill that is being discussed. It is time now for CLOG and the civil service to be very serious about now what should be the structure of the new civil service that we want Ghana now to have. And in terms of the structure at the commission level, the members who are to be appointed should not be ones appointed by the president. And then below that, within the civil service itself, chief directors and directors are no longer to have any kind of presidential kind of hand when they are being appointed, because this is the kind of civil service that Ghana used to have, and that Japan and then many other countries have built. And today, South Korea and others are making progress, moved from third world, South Korea now to first world, has moved from third world long ago now to first world. But they were our contemporaries. What happened to Ghana? Because we destroyed the clear structure of public administration that we inherited and we had at independence. So let's do it.
In fact, it is obvious that we cannot exhaust this discussion, and we need to bring the curtains down here and continue some other time, because it's getting interesting and interesting. We need to also understand that as we speak, it is evident that political neutrality is very important and still relevant within the public services best practices, and Ghana's socio-political evolution require that no civil servant or local government servant should owe or be perceived to owe appointments or promotion to partisan activities. Partisan activities tend to be obvious and explicit, and they are more often than not visible and not known to those in and out of public service. Once these commitments are known, the principles of neutrality, impartiality, and integrity are weakened and endangered. This is how and where we bring the curtains down on this morning's production, and we'll be in your various homes once again come next week. I'm your host, Cephas Dosu, and I want to take this opportunity to thank our lawyer, Esquire Ali Gomda, who has been the legal advisor to CLOG and was the lead counsel for the case in 2017 that has brought us thus far. I also want to thank Dr. Pia, who is a lecturer at the University of Ghana School of Public Administration.
Yeah. Yes.
I also want to thank the Executive Secretary of CLOG, the National Executive Council of CLOG, members of CLOG, and more especially the technical crew of CLOG TV for bringing us to your home. Stay tuned, and we shall meet again. Have a most blessed day. Thank you very much.